Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Casting Angles with Mac Brown. Mac, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Marvin?
Trying to stay cool and out of trouble. How about you?
Pretty much the same. Yeah, we've been in a pattern for sure. Having some heat, and the breezes are real nice, and the rains keep bringing relief in the evening. But it's been hot for the mountains the last week or so.
Yeah, we were talking before we started recording, so we've kind of hinted around this a little bit, but it's getting really kind of, particularly if you don't like getting up really early in the morning, it's getting a little too hot to go chase trout. But there are plenty of opportunities, fishing farm ponds for brim early and late, and largemouth bass and stuff like that. But one of the things we've been trying to emphasize, folks, that even though you may not be able to fish the way you really want to fish, you can still work on skills. And one of the things Mac and I were talking about before we started recording was, what you can learn, fishing a lake, whether you're wading it, or you're fishing it from the bank or fishing it from a boat.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of skill sets that transfer over, identical when you go back, and chase trout on the lake too in the winter. And, there's a lot of good, like I've been throwing a lot of the new Stillwater line from SA, but you can also go back and work. Like most people have a floater. Most people that are out there usually are always fishing a floating line. And that's the staple that most people have at their disposal. And one of the things that's often overlooked with the floating line is to put it out, relatively, 50 feet, 60 feet. Try to keep it out there somewhere in that distance and practice your hand retrieve and just really pay attention to the sag coming off the rod tip. And have the rod, lower to the water, like 1.5 feet, 2 feet off the water is about ideal. And just really study that position as you're pulling that fly and different rates coming off the fingers with a hand twist retrieve. And you'll see that elongate. You'll see that curve disappear. And you can practice that. The best place is find like a bunch of brim, because they're going to be real willing participants every time it comes by a brush pile, buried cedar and whatever. Just pulling a little fly through there and watching that elongate, and practice your strike detection, because that's going to pay off huge dividends with trout.
Yeah, it's kind of like, folks, I would say, it's kind of like when we, fish without an indicator for trout, and we're looking at basically the angle between the sighter, the leader, coming out of the water, except you're looking at that same type of angle, but at the rod tip, right?
That's right. And that means you have strike detection, whether it's, 40 feet, 60 feet, 80 feet away, the strike detection is still instantaneous. When that elongates, that's a really good way to, put a fly. You can still fish down, 5, 8 feet of water, and your strike detection is just instant. When you see that start to lift straight, I mean, you're getting the heads up, time to move and set the hook. And of course, the reason it's so effective is there's not tension in it yet. So the fish grabs it. I mean, what makes all fish spit flies really quick is when the tension's great. The greater the tension that's on a fly, usually the faster they'll reject it and spit it out. So with this, as that starts to elongate, they're still holding on to it. So you're striking off the visual before the tension, has ever increased for them to reject it. So they usually tend to hold on to it. We do the same thing and with tight lining techniques too. A lot of times we'll hold a higher angle. And the same thing, so the fly has a dead drift where there's no tension acting on the flies, There's times where that's really beneficial. And yeah, I'm sure they had to do that in the worlds out there in Idaho congrats to the U.S. women and the youth kids too. We wanted to say that, Marvin. So let's just get that in too, because they both just won, first in the worlds, which is a big deal for America fishing. And that's kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I just shared those stories on my Instagram feed within the last couple of days. But, just to kind of back up to the fishing in the lake, what we're really talking about is not fishing an indicator and not fishing a dry dropper, but literally tight lining, nymphs or really, really small streamers, right?
Yeah, it could be small streamers. It could be wets. I mean, we use a lot of wets on the lake too. People forget before conventional tackle came about, with Mitchell Garcia years ago, introducing, spinning rods and open face reels and bait casters and all that. I mean, everybody that fly fished in this country until before the early 30s when all that came about, they were all fly fishing. And so what do you think they threw? They were throwing the wet flies, traditional Irish wets, Welsh wets, English wets. They were throwing all the stuff that is still available pattern wise, today. And that's how everybody did it. Of course, what happened, there's a flip side of that. When it came about, they had like 55 million fly anglers in North America back then. And they lost most of them and dropped that number to like 6 million today. You follow me? Because it's easier to, have a little Snoopy, Barbie doll pink rod where you push a button. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but how many of those people will come back and fly fish? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny. You must be setting up your class this fall with Davey that I saw you post some things on.
Yeah, we're getting some good interest in that. Had some folks sign up this week and last week, and got a couple spots left still for that wet fly school. Fly fishing, pretty much a fly fishing boot camp there. Third week of October. So I'm really looking forward to getting down there. The water will be really nice, cold temperature that time of year. Be a lot of fun. That's what we'll be doing. We'll be doing a lot of the technique that I just described. That'll be one of the things that we'll definitely be using when we're talking about wets.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting too, because that'll be probably, Davey will probably be winding down his fishing season not too long after that and go to guiding bird dogs.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, and that'll be a good time. I mean, we'll have grouse season starting up here by the time I get back, and hopefully I'll get to do quite a bit of that before I get on the show season.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, I know it's hot, so people aren't necessarily thinking about fishing, but it won't be hot forever. You want to let folks know kind of how to reach out to get a lesson, get a guided trip this summer, and also maybe tease your schools that are coming up this fall.
Yeah, the easiest thing is just Mac Brown Fly Fish, and that's on the .com. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram, and I do better though off the ones with email because it's just easier. I don't miss an email ever. But the social media stuff. So a lot of people will direct message on that too, but I'm not as savvy on that as I am email. So I would say email or call off the number on the website and find out what's going on and what's available.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, listen, folks, as I always say this time of year, first of all, stay cool. But if you can, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Mac.
Tight lines, Marvin.